and be able to give a little bit about who Gloria is before I hand over to her. Now, Gloria Trista got into healthcare as a quirk of fate in 1980 when she bought a physical therapy business, physical therapy and rehab business in her husband's family, which she owned for 17 years. And then in 1997, she sold it on to a publicly traded company, who she worked for the next 6 years. Now, all during this time, Gloria could never figure out why, with our health, we wait until it's broken and then try and fix it. She became fascinated and wanted to take a more proactive root cause resolution to approach health and well-being, and really began to educate herself about functional medicine and preventative medicine. So in 2002, she founded Wellness Evolution with the hopes of helping people get and stay well for the rest of their lives, avoiding that unnecessary pain, suffering, and expense. And then since that time, she's really gained multiple certifications and distinctions in a more holistic approach to health and well-being, which has really taken her in direction of teaching wellness through speaking engagements, educational materials, and courses. So we are very humbled to have Gloria amongst the expertise that makes a Workplace Wellbeing Initiative. She also has written several articles and has recently completed and released her book, Wellness 101, Simple Steps to Good Health. Added to her accolades, she's not only a board certified holistic health practitioner, she's an EMCC certified executive business coach, advanced physical fitness specialist, and a hoard of certifications. She is also part US ambassador for both Global Wellness Day and World Wellness Weekend, and really an active member of the Future of Wellness at Work initiative, which also forms part of the Global Wellness Institute. She also has won numerous awards, which include the Better Business Bureau's Award for Excellence in Consumer Education. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Gloria to be able to take us through a bit of her knowledge and this plethora of knowledge that we all will definitely benefit from today.
Thank you, Naz. That was a great introduction. I really appreciate it. And I am going to try to share my screen here. Give me a second to get my slides up. And we're going to play. We're going to try to play. There we go. I have to move it around. Okay. So thank you all for being here, everybody. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be associated with these wonderful people, John and Nuz, and the whole Workplace Wellness Initiative that we're part of. As Nuz said, I've got all these certifications. It's probably because I just love the topic so much. I'm an education junkie, and I love simplifying wellness for people and making it more accessible and implementable for them. So my topic today is defining wellness, and wellness really is just being and feeling well, but it encompasses being physically, mentally, financially, and socially well. And it's the experience of being healthy and happy and having social connection and engagement and a sense of purpose. Today, you're going to be hearing about all of these topics. I don't need for you to read all of these, but we're covering a broad group of topics because really the self that you bring to the workplace has to be well in order to have good functionality, in order to be productive, in order to be happy at work. And that's what we want for all of you. Today, I'm going to focus more on the top two, physical health and mental and emotional health. So my question to you is, if you're not sick, are you well? Maybe, sometimes, but for the most part, health is cumulative. You may think you feel good today. I know a lot of people think they feel good until they realize how much better they could feel. Events don't just happen. You don't just one day bend over and your back goes out or just have a heart attack. These are things that are lifestyle behaviors that lead up to these events. And so these are the things that they're saying are killing us in the United States. Heart disease, cancer, all of the things that you would imagine, Alzheimer's, diabetes, the bottom two, kidney and liver, those are things that have to do with toxins. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But since this is a global event, I decided to do some research and see if the US and around the globe were about the same. And guess what? They really are, which surprised me. This chart is a few years older than the other one. And so COVID's not on here. But if you look at everything in the blue side, these are really preventable diseases for the most part. Sometimes you can't prevent it. It's in your DNA, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But for the most part, your lifestyle behaviors are what lead up to this. And that is really part of something the Global Wellness Institute has decided to try to conquer with the Wellness Moonshot. And we're all real excited about that initiative. But is that really what's killing us? Cancer and heart disease? Or is it actually the dietary risks, the tobacco smoking, the high body mass, all of the lifestyle behaviors that lead up to the diseases that are killing us? And here's the problem. It's us. 79% of adults aren't getting the recommended amount of daily exercise. 75% don't get enough fruits and vegetables. This one, 40% of adults are sleep deprived at any given time. What does that mean for the workplace? That means you can't be fully present, and it causes accidents when you're sleep deprived. The one that really got me, and I think this number is higher today, this chart's a few years old, but 32% of social media users say they feel lonelier. These are real issues, and the problem truly is us. But we can do something about that. I like to approach health and well-being from a functional medicine root cause approach. So looking at what's causing these things, what can we do? So if you take a look at this tree and you look at the top part, there's all these diseases that are literally preventable. 80% are preventable. 75% of our healthcare spend goes to treating these preventable diseases. And shockingly, only 3% goes towards prevention. Can you believe that? It's something that really we need to change, and it's up to us to do that. All your body is looking for is balance. If you look at the things in the roots, these are the things that we have some control over, that we can really study and look at and change. We're like a big chemistry project, our whole body. There's all kinds of things going on, and we need balance. When you wind up with any of these diseases, also, what happens to you is you may have a cardiovascular problem, and so you go to a cardiologist. And what happens then is you're only seen through the narrow lens of your heart, but we're a system that needs to function in balance. So healthcare so far is reactive and wellness is proactive. And it's the difference between a top-down approach where you have a symptom and then you're trying to squash the symptom with a medication. It's a one-size-fits-all. It's a rinse and repeat type of an approach, meaning the doctor may say, oh, you can't sleep? Well, here's your sleeping pill. Let me know if it works for you. What's your next problem? If it doesn't work, maybe they'll put you on something else. But they're not really getting to the bottom where you could say, I can't sleep. And the doctor says, why do you have these symptoms? What's going on? What can we look at that maybe you have control over that we can change? And that's a one-size-fits-one approach, and it's more personalized. So you're biochemically unique. It's very important to know what your biochemistry is. Even if you have an identical twin, because of your lifestyle, you're not going to wind up with the same markers. There's literally no one else like you. And it's very important to learn what your biomarkers are. What is your lab markers, the traditional ones, but also be aware that there's advanced laboratory testing that can tell you the levels of inflammation in your body, which is the root cause of all disease. And that could be measured with C-reactive protein, but most doctors don't measure that. So my advice would be to educate yourself on these things and ask for it. If you ask, they'll probably, write a script for that particular marker, and you can find out more about yourself. With hormones, as we age, our hormone levels go down. And so what we want to do is see where are we at and regain balance in those hormones. Brain chemistry, we can measure neurotransmitters. We can measure your genetic makeup. We can measure for things like allergies and sensitivities, which wind up in this category where there's people walking around who have health problems, and they're saying to them, it's all in your head, it's all in your head, because maybe you have a sensitivity to a food that you eat on a Monday, but a symptom doesn't show up on Wednesday, and it's very hard to connect the dots. And that's a real case that does happen. And also, we also need to know the levels of toxicity that we're exposed to and are accumulating in our bodies. And also, a lot of people will say, oh, you know, I'm genetically predisposed to diabetes. My aunt has diabetes. My brother has diabetes. My father had diabetes. I'm doomed. I'm going to get diabetes. But the truth of the matter is that more than 80% of your gene pool is modifiable through lifestyle. There's a whole new field of science called epigenetics. And what it studies and purports is that because of lifestyle, genes can either be turned on or turned off. They call that a gene expression. Whether or not your genes get expressed is really 80% up to you and what you're doing in your lifestyle. So my motto is control the controllable. There's a lot that can be controlled. One of the things that we can control is nutrition, right? What do we put in our mouth? But what is food? Have you ever asked yourself, what is food? A lot of people, their impression of what food is something that you put in your mouth, it tastes good, and you eat it. But is that really what food is? Just something that's supposed to taste good? Once food is digested, it sets off this whole multitude of interacting signals that go in a feedback system from your gut to your brain. There's an entire orchestra of actions going on in your body that must be supported with good nutrition. Think about what you're doing right now. You're seeing, you're hearing, you're sitting erect, hopefully, you're breathing, your heart's beating. All of those things need good nutrition to function. And they need to be whole, nutritious foods that contain the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, fiber, protein, and healthy fats that keep us healthy and alive. Food is your fuel. That's what gives you energy to get through your day. And the foods you eat can either be pro or anti-inflammatory, meaning there's a whole bunch of foods that cause inflammation, which once again is the root cause of all disease, or it could be anti-inflammatory, which is what you want. So think about what you're doing when you put food in your mouth. It's communication. So what kind of messages are you sending to yourself? Are you sending happy messages that make you feel good? Or are you literally flicking yourself off? Because that's what you're doing when you're not eating in the right way. So how do we do that? Think about it this way. Food can either be your best medicine or your slowest form of poison. Why would anybody eat poison? So here's your superfoods. I recommend highly that you eat organic foods. If you look at these two examples over here, this PLU code, this is universal. If it starts with a 9 and has 5 digits, it's organic. If it only has 4, it's not organic, meaning it's been sprayed with pesticides and you're going to eat that. So my suggestion is to eat only organic as often as you can. Eating beans is really healthy. Berries, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. Be careful with fish. Sometimes if you eat too much, you get a high dose of mercury, which is a heavy metal, and it's toxic to the brain. I have a list in my book that I'll show you later, but it shows you where to get your fish, which fish are overfished, which is important too. We need to keep those populations up, and also which ones are more likely to have mercury. And you want to eat your healthy greens, spinach, kale, collard greens, Swiss chard, and nuts and seeds. If you follow Dr. Furman, who I love, he talks about it as eating G-bombs, standing for greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. If you get your G-bombs, you're doing pretty good. So this is your best medicine. And here's your poison. Anything processed. If it has a label, probably a no. But there are some things in the center aisles of the grocery store that have labels, things like you might want to buy a can of organic black beans, things like that. But be a label sleuth. read the labels, find out what's in it. Trans fats of any kind, skip it. Sugar and sugar substitutes, the same thing. GMOs, for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, are genetically modified organisms. Why are they genetically modified? They're genetically modified to withstand being sprayed with pesticides and weed killers, things like glyphosate, which is a hormone disruptor and cancer causing. It's a carcinogen, it means cancer causing. You want to stay away from GMOs, and one way to do that is to get organic food. Cut out the fast food. And dairy and gluten for many people is an issue. If you find that you're very stuffy, you have chest congestion, you're clearing your throat a lot, I suggest doing an elimination diet of dairy and or gluten for 3 weeks. If you eliminate it completely, and I mean completely, for 3 weeks, you can add it back and see how you feel. That's a good way to know if those are a problem for you, or you can get tested. So talking about what you're putting in your gut has to bring up the gut-brain connection, which we're hearing a lot about these days. All disease starts in the gut. This was a statement made by Hippocrates more than 2,000 years ago, and we're just now beginning to understand this. This is crazy. We should know this. And the gut, when you speak of the word gut, it refers to the balance of the microorganisms that are living in the gut. Maintaining the right balance of these is a critical factor for getting and staying well and for good physical and mental health, because the gut is your second brain. What makes up the gut is your microbiome. Your microbiome is a community of trillions of bugs, literally microorganisms that live in and on us. They're on our skin, they're in our body, and there's hundreds of different species of them. They exist as bacteria, viruses, fungi, microscopic living things that need to be kept in balance. And they are part of us. There's so many of these bugs living in and on us that they weigh in at 2 to 5 pounds. Can you believe that? And they outnumber our human cells in our body by 10 to 1. So there's something you really want to make sure that you're keeping in balance. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, but that's where probiotics and prebiotics and fiber come in. So the gut is your second brain. The foods you put in your gut make neurotransmitters, and neurotransmitters are the body's chemical messengers. They're made from amino acids that come from our food, and some are actually made by our own bodies. A good example would be next week in the US, we'll be celebrating Thanksgiving. And anyone who's ever eaten turkey on Thanksgiving Day knows that right after the meal, you feel like you want to head for the couch and take a nap. And there's a reason for that, because turkey has an amino acid in it called tryptophan. Many of you have heard of that. And tryptophan is the precursor that makes serotonin. Serotonin is an example of a calming neurotransmitter. We have calming neurotransmitters and we have excitatory neurotransmitters. Keeping them in balance is one thing that keeps us well. How you could really know that your gut is your second brain? Have you ever just gone with a gut feeling? Or like before this talk, I always feel a little bit of butterflies. That's when you're nervous. Those signals are coming from your gut and going to your brain and back and forth. There's a communication system that works in your body. So for instance, when you hear about a runner, we just had the New York Marathon in the States, you hit a certain point in your run and all of a sudden they talk about having this runner's high. You get the runner's high because exercise creates dopamine, which is one of your excitatory neurotransmitters, as opposed to serotonin that's happy but calming. So think about that. And there's a lot of them. You can have them tested, by the way, if you're ever wondering if you're out of balance. Poor gut health is tied to nearly every disease. This is where your immune system lives. So having a healthy gut keeps you from getting sick and keeps you well. It's also where inflammation begins. And we just said, most diseases come from inflammation. So imbalances of unhealthy versus healthy microbes in the body can lead to all of these health concerns. And it's important to know this. I just am referencing here, and I believe it's going to be put in the chat. This is an article that I wrote that was published by the Global Wellness Institute called Mind, Mood, and Your Microbiome, a Healthy Gut at Work and Why It Matters. And I really make the connection between employers and what they can do for their employees so that they come to work with a healthy gut. And I have some of those suggestions at the end of my talk. So to maintain a healthy microbiome, you've heard a lot about probiotics. You may have heard of prebiotics. And now the big buzzword is postbiotics that are like a something that gets produced from the other two. It's really almost like a waste product. Butyric acid is one that I've seen used to repair the gut. So these are things that are important. And I'm going to mention something about how to choose probiotics later. We cannot talk about wellness without talking about exercise. So here are a few of my empowerment tips. Number one, walk your dog every day, whether you have one or not. Meaning get out and walk, move, do things. If you're on the phone, walk around the office, walk around the house. And when you walk, walk as if you have somewhere to go. A little quicker pace will increase your heart rate and your breathing compared to lighter activities. Make sure when you're exercising, you mix it up. You need cardio, but you also need stretching, and you need to strengthen those muscles. You don't use them, you will lose them, especially as you get older. And the best exercise program is the one you will do. You can exercise literally anywhere. And, you know, you can exercise in your car. When I pull up to a stoplight, I engage my core, I take a deep breath, I sit there, hold it in, and then let it out. You can do that all day long. You can do all kinds of things. And the reason it's so important is you only get one body to live in. This is it. Take good care of it. And remember that exercise stimulates the release of hormones, endorphins, like dopamine, serotonin that we just talked about, naturally helps improve mood, cognition, and concentration. And it induces a happy feeling, a calmness. It reduces anxiety. And believe it or not, the effects can last up to 72 hours from a good workout. This is your drug for depression. Don't reach for a pill, reach for some exercise. It increases your memory, your energy, your longevity. You'll sleep better. What you need to do is schedule an appointment with yourself, like you would if you were going to the doctor. Do it at least 3 times a week. And remember that you don't have to allocate a full hour to your exercise. You can take little exercise snacks throughout the day. When you make your coffee in the morning, do 20 squats or do 20 push-ups against the wall. Use your time wisely. Everything that you do adds up and it does count. And employers, make it easy to exercise at work. Have walking paths, have walking meetings. There's all kinds of things that you can do to encourage more exercise in the workplace. Well, you can't have a talk about wellness, right, without talking a little bit about stress. So there's a lot of different sources of chronic stress. And a lot of people will say, oh, I'm stressed, but I'm handling it. I can handle it. Well, you think you're handling it, but you're not. Stress has a very huge effect on your health and well-being. Here's a chart that shows you, this is out of my book, that shows you everything that can happen just from being stressed. It's more important than just saying you're handling it. Make sure that you handle it. Here are some ways that you can do that. Exercise, of course, proper nutrition, of course, better time management, some kind of visualization that you do, meditation, biofeedback. And there's even supplements that you can take to help you reduce stress, like ashwagandha, for instance. So things like that. You can take SAMe for your mood, to increase your mood. There's a lot of things you can do to help. First, start with the least invasive. If you need a little bit of a supplement, great. But if you can stay away from the meds, do it. And sleep is also very important for your well-being. That's when your body repairs itself. And it only does that in the deeper stages of sleep. So you want to make sure you're getting the right amount of sleep and a deep sleep. Lack of sleep is tied to higher dementia. We're seeing dementia rates rise and rise and rise. I know I don't want it. Let's make sure that you don't get it either. And that's from eating a healthy diet too. When you're sleeping, it increases leptin. If you're not familiar with leptin, it is a hormone that triggers a signal to the brain that tells it when you're full. The other thing that it does is it helps burn fat. So sleeping helps you lose weight. Who knew? The other thing is it decreases cortisol, which is your stress hormone. You're supposed to start your day out with a high level of cortisol. And as the day goes on, it's supposed to go down and down and down until at night you have a very low level of cortisol and you can sleep. Some people, and I'm sure you know a few, who start the day like a truck ran them over. They have no energy. They feel exhausted. They can't do anything until they've had coffee. And then as they get stressed out during the day, their cortisol level rises. And what happens then is when they're trying to go to sleep, they're tired but wired and they cannot sleep. Getting your cortisol checked is really simple. You spit in a tube 4 times during the course of a day, and you can check and see where your levels are. They can show you in a graph what's going on, and there are things that you can do to stop that from happening. So if you're one of those wired and tired people, ask your doctor to check your cortisol. Your immune system cleans house when you're sleeping, and the other thing is when you don't sleep, you don't look so good. So if you want to look good, you got to get your sleep. How do you get better sleep? Get in a pattern. Exercise, get a little bit of sunlight during the day. It helps maintain your circadian rhythm. Check your cortisol levels, lower the lights at night. It helps your body produce melatonin. Try not to take your B vitamins, drink alcohol, caffeine too close to bedtime, and avoid your computer screens and medications. Try meditating or breathing. Magnesium helps, sleep supplements can help, but stay away from the meds. They're addictive and they don't fix anything. They're just squashing symptoms. So we can't talk about wellness either without talking about the toxic exposures we're exposed to every day. We live in a toxic world. You can't get away from it. It's in our food. There's dyes, there's preservatives. It's in our cosmetics, our lotions, cleaning supplies. It's even in our fabrics. If you do a little research, or you get it in my book, you'll know that you could be sleeping on a toxic bed in toxic pajamas on toxic sheets. You've really got to open your mind and your eyes to what's going on around you and minimize your exposure. It's not only good for you, it's good for the planet. And heavy metals. If you're using regular deodorant, you're putting aluminum on your body every day. That's a heavy metal. And it is a neurodisruptor. That is not a good thing for your brain. Cookware, stay away from Teflon. Don't use plastic storage containers. There are toxins in the air, it's in the water, it's everywhere. So please, please become a label sleuth. Once again, learn how to read labels, learn where to look for the toxins. Reduce your use. This is what happens to people. I actually had an issue where I was passing out at my computer at 4 o'clock every day. I mean, not just falling asleep, like passing out. And I didn't know what was going on. And I saw a functional medicine doctor who did some testing on me, and I had too much lead in my body. Is that crazy? I was like, oh my God, where is this lead coming from? Well, guess what? There's lead pipes, there's lead in paint, and there's lead in lipstick, which I wear a lot of. So now I use non-leaded lipstick. But be aware that that could be happening to you. If you're walking around and you're fatigued, figure out if maybe you're carrying an overload of toxic chemicals in your body. I really want to talk to you a little bit too about lab testing, because today we are so lucky to have advanced specialty lab tests that can really get to the root cause of our health problems and help us stay well. And make sure that when you're getting these lab tests, that you're going to a practitioner that understands really and truly how to evaluate them. There are ranges. So if you're 65 years old, do you want to be in the normal range for a 65-year-old when it comes to your hormones? Or would you rather have the hormones of a 35-year-old? You really need to know, what are the ranges that they're using? How many markers are they using? There's all these thyroid markers that conventional doctors do not use, where a functional medicine doctor would be checking more markers, different markers. To a lot of you, those lab tests are just numbers on a page. You really want to learn what they mean. I have a whole chapter about that in my book in layman's terms, so you can really get the gist of it. You can even measure what your micronutrient content is at a cellular level and figure out what nutrients your body is missing. Just because you're eating everything doesn't mean that your particular body can absorb it. For instance, you can test your genetics, right? But there's something called a SNP, SNP. It stands for single nucleotide polymorphism. 40% of people, including me, have the MTHFR defect. They call it the mother effer gene. What happens is, if you have that defect, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It just means you don't methylate. And so if you're taking B vitamins, for instance, you need to take the methylated form because your body can't take them and methylate them, meaning it can't use them. So you really can find so much about yourself. And what it does is, it really enables you and your doctor to become health detectives. This is what I believe. And once again, Hippocrates, have you ever been asked, who would you like to have come back from the dead that you could have lunch with and talk to? I think for me, it's Hippocrates. He said this 2,000 years ago, the greatest medicine of all is to teach people how not to need it. That's how I feel about it. And that's why I'm so passionate about wellness and health and why I wrote my book. So it looks like I have a few minutes to talk about supplements, not too much, but this is one of my specialties. I love consulting with people about how to supplement their diet. And I'll tell you why you need to. A lot of people say, oh, I get everything from my diet. That may be true, but the way our food is grown today with industrial farming, it's not allowing the soil to rest long enough to build up those minerals and those nutrients that go into a plant that you're going to eat. And in many cases, I'm in the US, let's say my food is grown in South America. It's picked before it's ripe. It's put in a crate on a truck, then it goes to a train maybe, and a boat, and a plane, and however it is, it's a long time before it gets to me. And then it gets gassed in order to ripen it. But it doesn't have the nutrition. It may look beautiful, but it doesn't have the nutrition that we used to expect from our food. It's very different today than when I was a kid. Age also impairs your ability to absorb nutrition. So be conscious of that. As you're getting older, you may need to supplement a little bit more. And there's a whole section in my book about how medications deplete nutrients. You get side effects, that's a depletion of nutrients. For instance, if you're taking a statin drug, it depletes coenzyme Q10. You need CoQ10 for your heart to be healthy. That's what creates ATP, so that when you're firing a muscle, ATP is what's making that muscle move. Well, your heart's a muscle, so it needs CoQ10. I have the Wellness Evolution Core 4. It's in my book. It's on my website. They are, and I won't go through all this because we're running out of time, but I'll be happy to answer questions. And you can email me anytime to get this information, or feel free to buy my book. So multivitamins, always do that. You think of it as an insurance policy. You can't possibly meet all of your nutritional needs every single day. And because of what I just said about drugs depleting nutrients, chances are you could use a multivitamin. Omega-3 fatty acids, super, super important for all of these reasons. Cardiovascular health, depression, it's good for your brain. It's good if you're pregnant to take it in advance. It helps the development of the neurological health in infants. It's good for people with ADHD. There's so many reasons you need to take a good fish oil product. And if you're a vegan, you can take something that's made from plants, like flax. You can get alpha-linolenic acid. Probiotics and prebiotics, we talked about that. But if you're talking to someone and they say, oh, I take a probiotic, well, how many strains does it have? What are the species that you're taking? If you're taking a broad spectrum probiotic, that's great. Ideally, you want 25 plus billion, not million, billion CFUs, which stands for colony forming units, and have at least 8 different strains. The strains matter. You know, they say, oh, you could eat yogurt. Well, that only has one strain in it. It's acidophilus, but there's a whole bunch of other strains. There are strains, there's one strain called BB536 that helps take the COVID virus out of your body. So I say there's different strains for different gains. Think about why you need a probiotic. Is it for kids? Is it for immune? Is it for weight? And then make sure what you're taking has the right strains in it. And quality matters. If there's not a strain identification on the package, don't buy it. Vitamin D3 and K2 is the fourth of my core four, but you must take your vitamin D3 combined with K2. This is newer information, but what happens is D3 helps your body absorb calcium. The K2 tells it where to go. The K2 puts it in your bones rather than in your arteries because you don't want it there. That's where it could cause calcification and cause you to have a heart attack or a stroke. It also helps with all these other things. It helps your brain. It helps maintain a healthy weight. If you're not getting outside every day, you need to take a D3 supplement. And by the way, they found that in most cancer patients, a vitamin D deficiency was found to be prevalent. So think about that. Vitamin D is very important, but D3 is most bioavailable for your body versus D2. So make sure you're getting D3 and K2. The MK7 form of K2 is the best one to take. And you have to make sure that you're taking the right form. I use the example of magnesium. For instance, there's magnesium citrate, magnesium glycinate, magnesium threonate, magnesium sulfate. Know why you're taking a particular product and know what the form is and if it's the right form for what you need it to be for. Magnesium citrates for constipation. That's not going to help you if you have insomnia. It's better to do magnesium threonate, for instance, which gets into the brain quicker and better. But if you're having muscle cramps, magnesium sulfate, which is Epsom salts, is good for you. And the other thing is always check if you're taking a vitamin supplement, whether or not you should take it with or away from food, with or away from other supplements or medications, and what time of day is best to take it. I have a whole bunch of protocols on my Fullscript website. Be happy to share them with you. Feel free to email me. This one was for the flu and virus. This one's for sleep, anxiety, and depression. And employers, you can help people be well. Bring services on site to the company. Make it easy for your employees to get the care that they need. I have personal experience. We brought in all of these services to Parker Hannifin Corporation. They're a global company. Their headquarters happen to be in Cleveland. We staffed their on-site clinics with naturopathic and functional medicine doctors. We had acupuncture, massage, Reiki. We created exercise and walking routes. We had yoga there. You can bring in Tai Chi. Have a quiet room where people can go to just get away from it all. Bring in a farmer's market. Make sure you have healthy vending and healthy cafeteria food. And bring in speakers like those that you're going to hear about today in this summit, who have a topic of interest to your people, whatever resonates for you, courses, cooking classes, and by all means, in your plants and in your offices, do your best to avoid toxic chemicals. So now I'm unabashedly going to promote my book because it just came out last week. John has a link to Amazon. It's on Amazon for pre-sale until December 1st. I did that intentionally as a strategy to try to get bestseller status, because they will fill all the orders then. And Dan Buettner from the Blue Zones, Dan Buettner Jr., wrote this beautiful testimonial for the book, and I really appreciate him. So I'm going to shout him out today too. So please do that. Also, if you're interested in learning more about how you can get and stay well, I write a weekly article in LinkedIn, and these are some of the topics from the last month. Feel free to subscribe. I promise you it'll be worth your while. It's very simplified and very actionable. And so I thank you. Please feel free to reach out to me. There's my email address. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. Email me if you want to learn how I work with my clients. And please reach out to enroll in my new 8-week Wellness 101 course starting in January. We will teach you how, in a very simplified manner, to build a strong foundation on which you can build a well life. So that's it, folks. Ready for some questions? And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Gloria. I think there was a wealth of information there. And I think the one thing that I took away from it all is the fact around how we need to empower and educate ourselves. I think in the UK, we tend to use this term, we're very much about MOTs on cars. So every year you make sure your car is working fine, it's taxed, it's on the road, it's got enough oil, it's got enough everything that it needs, but we don't actually stop and put an MOT in place for ourselves or on a continuous basis. So I really took a lot, and there was a lot there that was resonating. I think some of the questions, and please opening it up to everyone, do please use the function of Q&A to ask any questions, as we do appreciate there was a bit of a technical hitch in terms of the chat not being enabled, but please do use the Q&A to offer any comments or any suggestions you have. As I reiterated on the Q&A as well, that we will be sharing a recording, of course, after the online summit, and we'll be able to share a lot of these things. Gloria has shared some of her, links, etc., in the chat there. So please do get in touch if there's anything there. I am looking for any Q&As, and I see no open questions at the moment. So do come back to us. In the meantime, I guess, Gloria, my question for you is, as we've discussed at length, there's a lot there to unpack. If there were 3 things you had to say to someone like me, or many in the audience, or even those that are going back to organizations perhaps, what are the kind of 3 things that I could do that are quite quick wins? And because people are time poor, it's not making anything excusable, but what are 3 really good points that I could go away and go, okay, that's my homework, I'm going to go away and I'm going to do it?
Well, I think my mantra of control the controllable. So the 3 things that we can control a lot, and there's more than 3, but for sure, the food you eat. Just try really, really hard to move away from any of the foods that are the poisons that we say, slowest form of poison that can kill you, or feed yourself medicine, feed yourself happy food, things that really make your body feel good, make your body function well. If you're not functioning well and you're not eating a healthy diet, you can fix that. Just maybe learn, if you don't know how to cook, learn how, or find a chef that will make meals for you. Things like that. Simplify your life with that. Exercise, make an appointment with yourself like you would with the most important meeting you've ever had in your life, because it is so important, and you feel better. If you take that time out of your busy day to do the exercise, you're really going to be grateful for it, because you're going to come back renewed and feel better. And then I would say, listen to your body. I didn't say this earlier, but listen. Your body is telling you things. When I was passing out at my computer at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I knew my body was telling me something wasn't right. You know when something's not right, but you need to listen to it. You know it, but you'll say, oh, that'll go away. Yeah, I have that stress. It's okay. Listen to the signals, because that's very important information, and you can take that. The other thing I'm going to do for Naz, if it's okay with you.
Perfectly good. It's good.
Learn enough about how your body works that when you go see a doctor, if they say something and it doesn't feel right to you, remember that gut-brain connection, doesn't feel right. I don't want to take that pill. It's what you're feeling, but are you saying it? Feel confident enough to challenge it, question it. Why am I taking this? What can this pill do to me? What are the side effects that could happen to me? Are there risks in taking this? Because sometimes, and it's not the doctor's fault. They're not bad people. They're under time constraints. And so you really need to make a point, or they're just going to move on to the next person. And if you sit there and hold your ground and say, well, could I take a supplement instead? And most doctors don't know about nutrition, so probably not the right question to ask them. But if you ask them, why are you taking it? I cannot tell you how many people came into my clinic and I say, well, what medications are you on? And they have a list. What's this for? I don't know. What's this for? I don't know. What can it do to you? I don't know. You need to know. Find out. You've got the internet. Get ChatGPT, it'll tell you. But you've got to know what's going on and what you're doing to yourself. You've got one body. This is it. So take good care of it. Look, I am a grandmother to 5 beautiful grandchildren. And when I see them, I'm on the floor playing with them. I have no intention of ever being in a nursing home, having someone change my diaper. I'm going to slide into home. So that's what I wish for all of you, is to stay well as long as you can and enjoy your life. You only get one.
No, thank you so much. I think that Gloria, it definitely is. I think there's a couple of things that I know I need to go back and have a look. And the one that really resonated with me was the D3 K2, living in countries where the weather isn't so fantastic at the moment. Yes, South Africa has phenomenal weather. It's sunny, but I'll be back in the UK where the weather is not so great most of the time, and it's very grey, and that does tend to impact your mood as well. So it is very much about finding out the various things that work for yourself. I just wanted to share some comments as well. So just for everyone's awareness, as I said, we will be sharing the recording after the event, after the online summit is complete. There will be various links being sent out, so do watch out for those. And thank you, Mohammed, for your comment of great presentation and information. Thank you very much, Gloria and team. We really do appreciate all your comments, and for your time being here. We really appreciate that. And then I think Mohammed has also just made a comment around sometimes common people research too much and get anxious about the medications and supplements. I think, yes, Mohammed, I think it's being more aware of what you have and actually just asking and educating yourself. But I do agree on that point, I think. And on that note, as I see, there's no other questions at the moment. There's much information that's there. I'm sure we can free up some time for everyone to go and have a bit of a comfort break, grab a cup of tea, and then definitely do join us for our next session that's coming up. But once again, thank you so much for your time. Plugging Gloria's book, Wellness 101. It's very well illustrated, and I think it resonates a lot of the time here. So once again, thank you so much for your time, for being here. We really appreciate it. Do watch out for any more links, etc., coming out, but enjoy the rest of the sessions that are coming through in the next 2 days. And for myself, Nuz, have a safe evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are globally.
Thank you. Same
Thank you so
to
much.
everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
And thanks, everybody. And now we'll be closing this link, and you'll see on your schedule there's a link for the next session. So thank you for joining us.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.